There we go. Have a good day, beautiful people. Here we go. People. Alright, we are good to go. Alright, beautiful people. Happy Wednesday. It is August the 18th, 2021, day 236 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets and of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 905. Y'all, today we are reading Ezekiel 35, 36, and 37, and then we'll pick up where we left off at yesterday in Fossilized Customs on page 333. All right, so let me go ahead and do divine blessings. Okay, so let's do the Shema. Get this party started. Trina, hey girl, hey. Alright, y'all remember the Shema? Y'all know where it's located at. Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting verse 3. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the mighty one of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, he is one. And you shall love Yahuwah, your mighty one, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. All right, y'all. Let me pull this up. Mom, shalom. Greetings from Greece. Hey, Coach, that's 367. Welcome. All right, y'all. Let's see. Pull this up. Dream, sky, love of peace and blessings. Okay, y'all. So Ezekiel 35. Shayla, hey girl, hey. Alright, y'all. start in Ezekiel chapter 35 today. A message for Edom. Again, a message came to me from Yahuwah. Son of man, turn and face Mount Seir and prophesy against his people. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord. I am your enemy, O Mount Seir, and I will raise my fist against you and completely destroy you. I will demolish your cities and make you desolate. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. Your eternal hatred for the people of Israel led you to butcher them while they were helpless, when I had already punished them for all their sins. As surely as I live, says Yahuwah, since you show no distaste for blood, I will give you a bloodbath of your own. Your turn has come. I will make Mount Seir utterly desolate, killing off all who try to escape and any who return. I will fill your mountains with the dead. Your hills, your valleys, and your ravines will be filled with people slaughtered by the sword. I will make you desolate forever. Your cities will never be rebuilt. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. For you said, the lands of Israel and Judah will be ours. We will take possession of them. What do we care that Yahuwah is there? Therefore, as surely as I live, says Yahuwah, I will pay back your angry deeds with my own. I will punish you for all your acts of anger, envy, and hatred. I will make myself known to Israel by what I do to you. Then you will know that I, Yahuwah, have heard every contemptuous word you spoke against the mountains of Israel. For you said they are desolate. They have been given to us as food to eat. In saying that, you boasted proudly against me, and I have heard it all. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The whole world will rejoice when I make you desolate. You rejoice at the desolation of Israel's territory. Now I will rejoice at yours. You will be wiped out, you people of Mount Seir and all who live in Edom. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. Whew. Ezekiel chapter 36, restoration for Israel. Son of man, prophesy to Israel's mountains. Give them this message. O mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah. And let me remind you of something, just in case you forgot. Remember, when he said prophesy to the mountains of Israel, mountains actually represent the entire nation, right? They're not just speaking to the land, but they're actually talking. He's actually talking to the people. So, and I forget exactly where it was, but it said it in Ezekiel in earlier chapters, but you can also, I believe it's also in Isaiah, where it says the mountains are the nations, right? I think we talked about it like 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. I have to go back and watch the video to see exactly where. But I know it's definitely in here in Ezekiel. Son of man, prophesy to Israel's mountains. Give them this message. O mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Your enemies have taunted you, saying, Aha! Now the ancient heights belong to us. Therefore, Son of man, give the mountains of Israel this message from the sovereign Lord. Your enemies have attacked you from all directions, making you the property of many nations and the object of much mocking and slander. Therefore, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. He speaks to the hills and mountains, ravines and valleys, and to ruined wastes and long deserted cities that have been destroyed and mocked by the surrounding nations. This is what Yahuwah says. My jealous anger burns against these nations, especially Edom, because they have shown utter contempt for me by gleefully taking my land for themselves as plunder. Therefore, prophesy to the hills and mountains, the ravines and the valleys of Israel. This is what Yahuwah says. I am furious that you have suffered shame before the surrounding nations. Therefore, this is what Yahuwah says. I have taken a solemn oath that those nations will soon have their own shame to endure. But to the mountains of Israel, I will produce heavy crops of fruit for my people, for they will be coming home again soon. See, I care about you, and I will pay attention to you. Your ground will be plowed and your crops planted. I will greatly increase the population of Israel, and the ruined cities will be rebuilt and filled with people. I will increase not only the people, but also your animals, O mountains of Israel. I will bring people to live on you once again. I will even make you more prosperous than you were before. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. I will cause my people to walk on you once again, and you will be their territory. You will never again rob them of their children. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The other nations taunt you, saying, Israel is a land that devours its own people and robs them of their children. But you will never again devour your people or rob them of their children, says Yahuwah. I will not let you hear those other nations insult you, and you will no longer be mocked by them. You will not be a land that causes its nation to fall, says Yahuwah. Then this further message came to me from Yahuwah. Son of man, when the people of Israel were living in their own land, they defiled it by the evil way they lived. To me, their conduct was as unclean as a woman's menstrual cloth. They polluted the land with murder and the worship of idols, so I poured out my fury on them. I scattered them to many lands to punish them for the evil way they had lived. But when they were scattered among the nations, they brought shame on my holy name. For the nations said, These are the people of Yahuwah, but he couldn't keep them safe in his own land. Then I was concerned for my holy name, on which my people brought shame among the nations. Therefore, give the people of Israel this message from Yahuwah. I am bringing you back, but not because you deserve it. I am doing this to protect my holy name, on which you brought shame while you were scattered among the nations. I will show how holy my great name is, the name on which you brought shame among the nations. And when I reveal my holiness through you before their very eyes, says Yahuwah, then the nations will know that I am Yahuwah. For I will gather you up from all the nations and bring you home again to your land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. Your filth will be washed away, and you will no longer worship idols. I want you to, if you're not paying attention, I want you to just listen to how Yahuwah talks about blood. Every time he mentions blood, right? There is nothing about the blood that he ever mentions, right, that cleanses. He always says the blood defiles, right? This is why, just pay attention, y'all. You have to pay attention. Water cleanses, blood defiles, right? He said his people was as filthy as a woman's menstrual cloth, right? He looks at blood as he uses it in the analogy of something being unclean, right? So he ain't washing us with blood. According to how he moves and how he acts, he only washes us with water and he purifies us with fire, right? That's what he always says. That's always been his modus operandi, right? That's always been his mode of operation. I'm just saying, just in case you ain't paid attention and you've been taught otherwise. I'm just saying. Let me just go back up. I gotta go back up to verse 16. Then this further message came to me from Yahuwah. Son of man, when the people of Israel were living in their own land, they defiled it by the evil way they lived. To me, their conduct was as unclean as a woman's menstrual cloth. They polluted the land with murder and the worship of idols, so I poured out my fury on them. I scattered them to many lands to punish them for the evil way they had lived. But when they were scattered among the nations, they brought shame on my holy name. For the nations said, These are the people of Yahuwah, but he couldn't keep them safe in his own land. Then I was concerned for my holy name, on which my people brought shame among the nations. Like he said, I kick y'all out of here and y'all go out there and do foolishness. Nikki, hey, girl, hey. Now, I need to adjust this plan. Therefore, give the people of Israel this message from Yahuwah. I am bringing you back, but not because you deserve it. I'm doing it to protect my holy name, on which you brought shame while you were scattered among the nations. I will show how holy my great name is, the name on which you brought shame among the nations. And when I reveal my holiness through you before their very eyes, says Yahuwah, then the nations will know that I am Yahuwah. For I will gather you up from all the nations and bring you home again to your own land. Then I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. Your filth will be washed away, and you will no longer worship idols. What was the filth? He said it was like it was their sins, but it was like the woman's menstruous rag, right? Her bloody period pad. That's gross, right? It's filthy, right? That's what he looks at it like. Your filth will be washed away, and you will no longer worship idols. And I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit in you. I will take out your stony, stubborn heart and give you a tender, responsive heart. And I will put my spirit in you so that you will follow my decrees and be careful to obey my regulations. And you will live in Israel, the land I gave your ancestors long ago. You will be my people, and I will be your God. I will cleanse you of your filthy behavior. I will give you good crops of grain, and I will send no more famines on the land. I will give you great harvest from your fruit trees and fields, and never again will the surrounding nations be able to scoff at your land for its famines. Then you will remember your past sins and despise yourselves for all the detestable things you did. But remember, says Yahuwah, I am not doing this because you deserve it. O my people of Israel, you should be utterly ashamed of all you have done. This is what Yahuwah says. When I cleanse you from your sins, I will repopulate your cities. The ruins will be rebuilt. The fields that used to lie empty and desolate in plain view of everyone will again be farmed. And when I bring you back, people will say, this former wasteland is now like the Garden of Eden. The abandoned and ruined cities now have strong walls and are filled with people. Then the surrounding nations that survive will know that I, Yahuwah, have rebuilt the ruins and replanted the wasteland. For I, Yahuwah, have spoken, and I will do what I say. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am ready to hear Israel's prayers and to increase their numbers like a flock. They will be as numerous as the sacred flocks that fill Jerusalem's streets at the time of her festivals. The ruined cities will be crowded with people once more, and everyone will know that I am Yahuwah. Last chapter for today, y'all, Ezekiel, chapter 37. The Valley of Dry Bones, one of my favorite chapters. I say that a lot about a lot of chapters because a lot of them are really my favorite. Yahuwah took hold of me, and I was carried away by the Spirit of Yah to a valley filled with bones. He led me all around among the bones that covered the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground and were completely dried out. Then he asked me, Son of man, can these bones become living people again? O sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. Then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, dry bones, listen to the word of Yahuwah. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I'm going to put breath into you and make you live again. I will put flesh and muscles on you and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am Yahuwah. So I spoke this message just as he told me. Suddenly, as I spoke, there was a rattling noise all across the valley. The bones of each body came together and attached themselves as complete skeletons. Then I watched. Muscles and flesh formed over the bones. The skin formed to cover their bodies, but they still had no breath in them. Then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to the winds, son of man. Speak a prophetic message and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, O breath, from the four winds. Breathe into these dead bodies so they may live again. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. That's us, y'all. We waking up from all the four corners of the earth. It's literally talking about us who have been dead and forgotten who we were. Like he's waking us up. One here, two from there, four from there. At each corner, begin to wake them up. Begin to wake up, Jacob. Jacob, wake up. Right? Then he said to me, let me go back. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. Our hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I will open your graves. I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. This is not talking about dead bodies that's been physically buried into the ground because they died, right? He's talking about those who were scattered to the four corners of the earth in the graves of exile. He said exactly that. Then he said this to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore, prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. Then I will bring you back to the land of Israel. When this happens, O my people, you will know that I am Yahuwah. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live again and return home to your own land. Then you will know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken, and I have done what I said. Yes, Yahuwah has spoken. The reunion of Israel and Judah. Again, a message came to me from Yahuwah. Son of man, take a piece of wood and carve on it these words. My kids took my stuff. I was going to use it as a prop. Oh well. Son of man, take a piece of wood and carve on it these words. This represents Judah and its allied tribes. Then take another piece and carve these words on it. This represents Ephraim and the northern tribes of Israel. Now hold them together in your hand as if they were one piece of wood. When your people ask what your actions mean, say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will take Ephraim and the northern tribes and join them to Judah. I will make them one piece of wood in my hand. Then hold out the pieces of wood you have inscribed so that the people can see them, and give them this message from the sovereign Lord. I will gather the people of Israel from among the nations. I will bring them home to their own land from the places where they have been scattered. I will unify them into one nation on the mountains of Israel. One king will rule them all. No longer will they be divided into two nations or into two kingdoms. They will never again pollute themselves with their idols and vile images and rebellion, for I will save them from their sinful apostasy. I will cleanse them. Then they will truly be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David will be their king, and they will have only one shepherd. They will obey my regulations and be careful to keep my decrees. They will live in the land I gave my servant Jacob, the land where their ancestors lived. They and their children and their grandchildren after them will live there forever, generation after generation. And my servant David will be their prince forever. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant. I will give them their land and increase their numbers, and I will put my temple among them forever. I will make my home among them. I will be their God, and they will be my people. And when my temple is among them forever, the nations will know that I am Yahuwah, who makes Israel holy. Shalom, Josiah. And that is our reading for today, beautiful people. That was Ezekiel 35, 36, and 37. So remember, anytime you hear end of the world prophecies, right? The world is ending, the world is not going to end, right? There are many more generations that are coming after us, right? Esau rules first, then after Esau is Jacob. We got next. All right, y'all. Hop on over here. You got something to say, babe? Here for the comments. Okay. All right, y'all. So we left off on page 333. Come out of her, my people. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues, because her sins have piled up to reach the heaven, and Yahuwah has remembered her unrighteousness. Render to her as she indeed did render, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix for her double. As much as she esteemed herself and lived riotously, so much torture and grief gives to her, because in her heart she says, I sit as a sovereigness, and I am not a widow, and I do not see mourning at all. That's Revelation chapter 18, verses 4 through 7. Remember, we stopped off yesterday talking about polygamy, and then it went into on guarding the Torah, and the final word on guarding the Torah, right? We talked about what Yahuwah said about it. Okay, so the next section is labeled trust, or which means amuna, or steadiness. How should we live, and whose purposes do we serve? All during our belief lives, we struggle against strongholds that keep us from a knowledge of Yahuwah's will for us. Every hour, 6,390 people die on this planet, and the probability you will die one of those days is 100%. We should live each day as if it is our last. Our words and actions toward one another should always be uplifting and without discouragement. They are either words of life or words of death. Any day we may meet a person needing our encouragement. Any day we may meet a person needing our encouragement, and we could alter their entire life. Belief is to be practiced. Witchcraft is any kind of rebellious behavior. In what follows, we will show that everything being taught and practiced is witchcraft to Yahuwah. People are trained from childhood to see common traditions as something different than they are. They are trained to disregard Torah and practice traditions. When we obey Torah, we are trained to think of obedience as what completes or fulfills the objective of Torah. Living out or acting our belief is amuna, steadfast or firmness. Belief without action is dead, empty of life, and we can find that in James chapter 2. Not serene are steady in their behavior or in their amuna. Christianity is off balance, practicing traditions. By your actions, you show the evidence of your belief. By your actions, you also can deny Yahuwah. Titus chapter 1, verse 16. Who is our teaching authority? Yah is our teaching authority. Our shepherd guides us into truth. Peter warned us about false shepherds twisting scripture, guiding us into darkness and lawlessness. 2 Peter chapter 3. The one we listen to is the one we trust. The Talmudists share a corresponding position with the church fathers in that they added and took away much. They invented their own imaginary world, inserting themselves as the only teaching authority. Without their misguided influences, people would be walking exactly as Yahuwah tells us to walk. One has to wonder what the world would have been like if the Talmudists and the church fathers had never existed. The church fathers were the Alexandrian cult at the catechetical school of Alexandria, Egypt. This school is known as the Didascalia. I probably screwed that up. It's Greek for teaching authority. The headmasters of this school interpreted scripture allegorically. The Roman support of it overwhelmed the school at Antioch, the true school founded by the original Nazarene. Rome fed the Alexandrian cult, sharing in the wealth of the Fiscus Judaicus, or the Jewish tax, eventually becoming the teaching authority of Christian doctrines. Nothing whatsoever commanded by Yahuwah was or is promoted, and instead the following pagan customs were instituted: Sunday, steeples, which are pillars, stupas or obelisks, representation of the male phallus or the male penis, right? So you see a church with a steeple is representing Nimrod's male factor. Bells, which represents the testicles.
Talk that talk.
Vestments of the Mithric priesthood, which is Dagon, Mitri, stoles, augury, stage. You ain't gonna throw me off today. Holy water, imitating Ganges River, water from Hindu Gnosticism, the Queen of Heaven cakes, or they're also known as birthday cone hats, wishes to genies, candles, astrology, witchcraft horoscope, Yule logs, mistletoe, beads, rosaries, weeping for Tammuz, Lent, ashes, also Hindu, fertility symbols, the tree phallus, the ornament test. Remember so the tree, the Christmas tree, represents the phallus or the male penis. The ornaments that you hang on a tree represents the male testicles or testes. The tinsel, people probably don't use that tinsel anymore. They're streaming little long strings that get everywhere. It's just a big mess. It represents the semen, which is ejaculated from the penis. Yeah. The wreath, what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The wreath, everybody like do up these wreaths and put them on their front door. My neighbor got one on her door right now. I'm looking at it every time I see it. I was like, if you don't get that off the door, that it represents the female, the vagina, right? Like ever since I learned this, I cannot, and I just kind of giggle a little bit and keep on walking, right? Okay, fertility symbols are the tree phallus, the ornament testes, the tinsel semen, the wreath vagina, rabbits, eggs, and fish. Ooh, look, y'all probably knew this, but it was like I had a duh moment the other day, right? I was so excited about it. My sisters and them already realized it, but and plus one of my sisters is a nurse. She was like, "Oh yeah, so y'all ever have dreams about fish?" And everybody said, when you dream about fish, that means somebody pregnant, right? So I'm like, oh, why would you just dream that they're pregnant, right? Why would you dream of fish? It never really made sense to me until it actually made sense to me the other day, right? Well, yeah, I guess it's been a couple days now. Anybody know why? I'll let y'all guess. We'll play Jeopardy. If you know why you see fish when somebody pregnant, type it in the chat box. Nobody know? Yeah, it represent fertility, but why exactly do you dream about fish when somebody's pregnant? And most of the time, at least in my understanding, it's always been true. At least in my family, when we dream about fish, somebody is actually pregnant. Okay. Yep, you right, Rod. Okay, but anybody know why you dream about fish? Which is crazy, right? Like, because you don't control those dreams, but you dream about fish, and somebody actually is pregnant. Y'all know why? Nobody knows? Let me tell you why. Because the first phase of life at conception, you, like all of us who have broken through the matrix, our first form is like a sperm. Like it represents the fish. That's the first phase of life, right? Making it to the egg. So that means somebody has just conceived. That's why you dream of fish. I'm like, it just blew my mind. I'm like, well, duh. Looking at medical books and stuff and all this. I'm like, well, duh. That's freaking amazing. Look, and we don't give ourselves those dreams. That just comes to us from the unseen realm, letting us know, hey, conception has happened somewhere, right? This uh this first phase of life, what the sperm looks like, it reminds you of a little tadpole fish. Hey, it just made contact. We need to be expecting a new soul to arrive here in the next 9 months. I dream about fish to eat it. Okay, y'all. I'm back to reading. All right. We'll do the fertility symbols again. Fertility symbols. The tree, phallus, the ornament represents the testes. The tinsel represents the semen. The wreath represents the vagina. Then you got rabbits, eggs, and fish, which represent actual fertility, right? Statue, veneration, celibacy, magic, hoc est corpus meum, aka hocus pocus, monks, nuns, pope, cross symbols, solar icon from Babel's Tammuz, which the crosses represent, right? It's a solar icon for Babel's Tammuz. Sacraments, which are imaginary dispensation of favors through the priestcraft, right? Indulgences for time off from non-existent purgatory punishment for venial sins, like you go repent of all your sins to the Pope, and thereby you hope you can bypass purgatory. First of all that's a bunch of garbage, right? And you really wasting time, right? Indulgences for time off from non-existent purgatory punishment for venial sins, a distorted version of Passover expressed in a bloodless sacrifice called Mass, sunrise services, Ishtar, Easter, Esoter. The dragon has deceived the whole world. To concentrate power in the clergy's teaching authority over the nobility and laity, new dogmas continue to be invented over the centuries. Not a shred of truth remains, yet billions are following a religion of men's traditions. The sign of the eternal covenant is forgotten. It's the 7th day of the week called Sabbath. Teachers who tell the truth are still the little flock, but the broad path is well funded with misused tithe intended to go to the widow, fatherless, foreigner, and priesthood of Israel. Israel, not the state of Israel. We reject the church fathers, one of whom wrote about us, Epiphanius. We obey the commandments of Yah. All right, so next is word study, and we're gonna go. It's giving us the definitions of these words, and this actually might take us to the end of our reading day. We might make it over here to the cross, right? What's so funny? Whenever my wife dreams about fish, she always thinks her niece is pregnant. I always tell her to stop that. Oh, the Egyptian crosses also represent the woman's sexual part as well. Yeah, it's this church in Dallas, Texas, named Friendship West Baptist Church. The pastor of that church has an Egyptian cross inside his pulpit. Yeah, it's all guys. They use all kinds of stuff. Let's go to this word study. You would be amazed at some of the things. Even some of the hidden things, or even some of the things, I would say things hidden in plain sight that we don't necessarily recognize and don't realize. Wait a minute, what is going on in here, right? Okay, word study. Abba, A-B-B-A, Hebrew for male parent. Abinu is Hebrew for our father. The ending letter U makes the word plural possessive. Adonai, Hebrew meaning my sovereign. Adon, A-D-O-N, is sovereign. The letter ending I or Yod makes it mean my, as expressed in Eloi, my lofty one or mighty one. Rabbi, my teacher. And Ani, myself. So anytime it's ended in I, it means my, or Adonai, my Adon, or my sovereign, right? Okay. The Hebrew term Adonai was used in place of the name. Agnostic, Greek for without knowledge. A, against, and Gnostic, knowledge. So agnostic means you're against, or without knowledge, or same thing, against knowledge, right? Without knowledge. Apis, Apis, a sacred bull worshipped as Aten by the ancient Egyptians, having horns with the sun disk between them. The Israelites made a golden calf or apis to worship the creator, Yahuwah. Yahuwah forbade such images and any other pagan practices. Archaeology, from Greek, art. I might screw this word up. I know we got somebody from Greece. I'm sorry. Look. Archaeologia. 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 Archaeo. Ancient beginning. Plus ology. Logy. Logy means to study or reason. It's the study of antiquities, primitive, original, and archaic habits, customs, structures, etc. Asceticism. Severe self-denial, an austere way of life, supposedly to permit union with the divine. Paul spoke against it at Colossians 2:21 and 22. Pagan monks and hermits often lived this way, most often celibate and living in poverty. This was used by Catholicism, accompanied by various vows to control literate men who copied and translated the scriptures. In these monk factories, sentences from scripture were divided up so men could not make sense from them as they were copied and translated. A vow of silence was imposed so that they could not discuss what they had worked on with other monks. The sentences would remain incomplete in their minds, and understanding was very limited. Wow, that's crazy. Y'all, I was shoot. Let that have been me. I would have been. Hey, what piece you got? I know. Look, what piece you got? Cause this sounds pretty interesting. I'm just trying to put pieces together. I know we took a vow of silence, but look, they ain't gotta know. This is something really important. They splitting all this up like this. What don't they want us to know? Me, I'd be the cause of insurrection somewhere, right? But it'd be quiet. You wouldn't even know it's coming. Battle of Yah Shalom. Atheist, Greek for one who subscribes to the belief there is no creator or spiritual beings, placing mankind as the highest authority. A, being without, plus theos, meaning deity, deus, or Elohim. Baal is Hebrew for Lord. This word was used as a proper name for the sun deity by the Canaanites and even the Druids. The familiar word Beelzebub is more accurately the Hebrew Beelzebul, meaning Lord of the Flies. The names contain Bel, B-E-L. The names containing Bel are references to the pagan deity, as in Isabel and Belshazzar. Isabel is Jezebel, right? But we know there wasn't a J, so it wasn't Jezebel, although that's what everybody knows her by, but it's actually Isabel, right? Okay. Another name for Satan or Satan is Belial. To say the Lord is my shepherd doesn't relate to the Creator, but rather to Satan. Satan deleted the true name and put in a generic term referring to himself. The ancients related the term Baal to the sun. So if you ever hear people talking about scriptures saying that the Lord is Satan, y'all worshiping Satan, technically they're actually correct on what they're saying if they're looking at the linguistics and how they changed everything, right? So that's why we have to be very aware, and that's why we call Yahuwah by his name, just to make sure we don't get mixed up in that confusion, make sure we keep ourselves straight, right? Okay. Baptism, from the Greek baptizim, meaning to dip. It referred to dyeing fabric, but came to be used by pagans for initiation ceremonies using water or blood and sprinkling. The true Hebrew word is tevila, T-E-V-I-L-A, where a person is immersed in a body of water called a mikvah, M-I-K-V-A-H. It also signifies a pledge to obey. and it is the most important event in one's life in the conversion of a Gentile to become engrafted into Israel. It's an outward sign of a commitment to Yahuwah and identifies the convert I don't know how I feel about the how he explained the rest of this. But I don't necessarily see anything wrong with baptism. I really don't. I've been baptized quite a few times, and I think it's good. To mikvah is good, but the way he explains it here is still the church definition. So we'll just forego this. It's representing us, turning us to Yah, right, and circumcising our. It's an outward show of the inward circumcision of our heart. Not that it happens immediately, because now that you then mikvah, you then dipped yourself in water, signifying washing away your past life, and now walking in the truth of Torah, you actually need to put actions to your belief. Like we just talked about, faith without works is dead. You believe you belong to him, now you need to act like you belong to him. Otherwise, you ain't none of his. Bells, Bells. The world's oldest bell was unearthed in Babylon. Bells are among the oldest items used in pagan worship and were one of several noisemakers used. They were employed to give worship to the sun and were usually placed in or near the top of an obelisk or high place. Orientals used gongs as well as the familiar bell shapes. They were brought into Christian worship along with steeples from paganism. Augustus Kaiser is on record as having dedicated an enormous bell placed in the entrance tower to the temple of Jupiter. Belief, a mental act or habit of placing trust or confidence in an opinion, the acceptance or expectation of something to be true or real. When something believed in is exposed as being false, a reaction is aroused. How an individual reacts depends on how well equipped they are and the degree to which they want to believe the falsehood. Okay, yeah. So people who have extremely violent reactions to you telling them the truth are super steeped in that lie that they believe, or they want it to be true so bad. It's like that's what happens, like when you talk to Christians and tell them, hey, you really might want to check out what you've been doing, or what you've been told was the truth is not the truth, right? Because what happens is not that they don't want truth, because they really do. But what happens is when you begin to kind of poke at their foundation and bring inspection to some of the things that they've been believing all their lives, they get afraid, right? Because it seems like their foundation is about to be shaken to the core. They don't know what to do. They don't know anything else. This is all they've been taught. So people will violently fight you to defend what they believe to be the truth and what they believe to be their foundation on which they live their entire life, right? Because if you begin to come inspect this foundation and it's found to be lopsided and weak here, and this it's completely a mess, they have to begin to think about some things. And now they begin to think, wait a minute, well, they lied to me. Are they liars? Did they know they were lying to me? Were they themselves deluded all this time? Well, who has been doing this? Or who has been answering my prayers? And a lot of times it's if you really like me, right? Because even before I realized and I was calling Yahuwah by another name, it was still Yahuwah that was answering me, right? It's just I was ignorant of who he was. But as he began to wake me up and open my eyes and stuff, I began to correct myself. I stopped referring to him as Jesus. I was like, what is your name, right? So I went looking for his name, like, because I don't want to, my name is Pamela. I don't want nobody calling me Patricia, Pat, Pumpkin, Petunia. My name is Pamela. Please and thank you. And if we're intimate, not like sexual, but if we're close in relationship, then I'll allow you to call me by nicknames. I have some nicknames that only those who know me are privy to, and they call me that, and I answer to that, right? Yahuwah is the same way. Like, we know his name, but some of us, we have more intimate names that we call him, and he allows that, right? But even in our ignorance, if we don't know, he's still kind of not petunia. He's still kind of. I just think, y'all, he's not like we are, right? Because some people I've been and set fire to, and just, y'all out of here. Y'all gets no more chances with me, right? I'm glad y'all's not like that, right? He sees the ignorance that we're in, and he works with us, right? He's very patient, and he'll drop a little on us here, a little there, and he realizes that when we get to a certain, especially if we're looking for truth, he knows that we're going to do what's right? Hey, look, her name is not Petunia, it's Pamela. Call her by her name, right? And other people are like, what you just call it, girl, sis? No, her name is Pamela. You can call her Pam. You might want to call her Pamela until she tell you it's okay for you to call her Pam, right? It's stuff like that. Even other people, they will begin to stand up, and that is, who you, what you just call her? Girl, no, that is not her name. And that's like how we be sometimes. But even with people that's just waking up special, coming out of the Christian church, and it's like, he been Jesus to me, I'm going to call him Jesus because he been answering my prayers in the name of Jesus. Okay, I get that. I ain't going to fool with you. I'm going to go on about my business. You know, you still waking up. So I'm okay. That's cool, right? But I learned not to do that because I understand it's a process, right? And some people hold on to whatever they can find that's solid while their lives are being reconstructed with truth, right? And truth is being laid down. It's like they're literally on shaky ground, and they're trying to find something to hold on to, like, because it's like they have to deal with everything. It has my whole life been a lie. Like, they have to process through this. So I learned how to be patient, because it can be really devastating. I went through that. Like, it's devastating, you know. So that's why I try and use my sense of humor when I can. But some people just have no laugh about them at all. Like, I'm just like, so serious. And people block me. Okay. When something believed in is exposed as being false, a reaction is aroused. How an individual reacts depends on how well equipped they are and the degree to which they want to believe the falsehood. Dresden James wrote, a truth's initial commotion is directly proportional to how deeply the lie was believed. It wasn't the world being round that agitated people, but that the world wasn't flat. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly preposterous and its speaker like a raving lunatic. If we are imputed righteousness by our belief alone, then why did James write, show me your belief without these, and I will show you my belief by what I do. You believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. You see, that a person is justified by what he does and not by belief alone. To believe includes action, right? We can say, he knows my heart, but without love shown by our obedience, we have profited nothing. When we call him Jesus or Jesus, in Hebrew, he hears, hey, horse. That's serious, clearly. That's what it means, right? Hey, horse. Like, the word Soos, S-O-O-S, means horse. Bible. This word passed into Greek, then Latin. It means books in Greek. It's not found in the inspired text of Scripture. It's just put on the cover. If your scriptures have maps in the back, check for a Phoenician port city called Byblos. Byblos. This city was named Byblos because their fertility idol Byblia was worshipped there in a temple dedicated in her honor. The city was later renamed Gebal, Gebal. This port city exported papyrus, or the writing paper of the ancient world, So scrolls came to be called after the name of the city, which was named after an idol. It might not be wise to continue to call the word of Yahuwah the Bible now that you realize this. He calls his word to mankind the Torah, or teachings, Nebim, or prophets, and Ketubim, writings. I call it the books of the law and the prophets. We've been every day, right? The books of the law and the prophets, and you can add the writers, but I just kind of keep it short because we know it includes the writers. I just say the books of the law and the prophets. This is abbreviated to the acronym Tanakh, TNK, or you add the A's in there to pronounce it properly. For those of us who only understand English, TANA. Adding the A's gives you the proper sound of this word, right? Tanakh. The Hebrew word for scroll is Sefer, or Megillah. His words are called Debarim. Remember Exodus 23:18. Binding and loosing at Matthew chapter 16, verse 19. Rabbi Yahusha told his pupils whatever they bound or loosed would be validated. The idea of bind means to forbid, and loose means to permit. So binding and loosing. If I'm going to bind you, I'm going to hold you tight. If I'm going to loose you, I'm going to let you go free. The idea of bind means to forbid, and loose means to permit. They had been fully trained in Torah by the Torah giver. He was going away, and his students would have to discern according to the Torah. Cathedral, Latin for cathedra, meaning throne. Cereal, Latin for cerealis, the grain of Ceres, a pagan deity. Oh, I didn't realize that. She eating cereal. This is the grain of the pagan god. That all the sugar to give you cavities and had kids bouncing all off the wall. That's what they named it after. The Greek pagan deity. Call it cereal. Oh, I never really paid attention to that. Charis, Charis, from Greek Zarisma, but it starts with an S, not a Z. I mean, an X, not a Z. So I think it makes the Z sound like a xylophone. I don't know if I screwed that up. Zarisma, Xarisma, a pagan deity's name. Is Zaris, Xaris, wife of Hephaestus? I don't know. Guys, forgive me. I don't know how to pronounce all these words, so I'm going to spell it out for you. She was the wife of Hephaestus, Hephaistos, the fire deity. Charred means burn. Other words produced from this are charity, charisma, charismatic. The three graces, or three charities, were a pagan trinity, also known as the three fates. Their names were Clotho. Our word cloth was the producer of the thread of life. Lachesis, Lachessis, or carrying rods, which she took to determine the fate of mankind, and Atropos, Atropos, the one who cuts the thread, determining the length of a person's life. Okay, so this trinity, the Clotho was the producer of the thread of life. Lachesis was the one who carried the fate and determined the fate of mankind, and Artopos was the one who cut the thread, determining the length of a person's life or when you would die. That's what their trinity was. We inherit this enchantment from witchcraft. Church. The Old English word was Circe, Crice, and you will see it spelled Kirk. I think it's Kirk. Kirche, written above many old church entrances throughout England. This is from the West Germanic Kirka, Kirika, which is based on the name of a Greek sorceress, Circe, Circe. Circe was famous among the pagans for turning men into pigs or other animals using drugs. The original English translation from the Greek text by John Wycliffe about CE 1380 used the word congregation for ecclesia, the called out body of believers. The original set apart ones who studied and did the word or the commandments were called kahal, Qahal in Hebrew, from which we get our word call. Maybe I pronounced it wrong. Which we get our word call, Call. Okay, I think it's kahal. Okay, kahal in Hebrew, Qahal, which we get our word call. The saints were set apart ones known as kodeshim. Commandments. The original Hebrew word is mitzvah, both singular and plural. The Old English meaning is edict. Bar mitzvah means son of the commandments or son of the Torah, and bat mitzvah is the feminine. The Talmud identifies 613 commandments, but in the Nazarene writings or the New Testament, there are 1,089 specified. Some are only for priests, others are for only women, and many are details pertaining to offerings, vows, and objects like gates or how to handle situations. The goal of Torah is to love, summed up in the 10 words, or the Decalogue, which is the 10 commandments. All the Torah hangs on the 2 great commandments, which Yahushua quoted to a lawyer who was testing him. Love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might, which is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 3. And love your neighbor as yourself, which we find in Leviticus 19 and 18. And he also has Matthew 22 and verse 37. Yahushua warned us not to set aside any of the commandments. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Matthew chapter 5, verse 19. Shemayim, well, I didn't say Shemayim, but it has Shemayim here. I didn't realize he was going to actually give you the description of Shemayim. Some of you may know, some of you may forget, but Shemayim means heaven or skies, outer space, often used as a substitution for the name of Yahuwah. Our rabbi restored the name, but monks subsequently removed it again from the text. We know this because at Acts 7:57, the Sanhedrin covered their ears and stoned Stephen to death for saying the name aloud. Shaul, later called Paul, was there giving approval for his death. Yahushua told us to become sons of light, and the Torah is light. See Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. Our eye must be filled with light, or it is darkness, meaning without Torah. The commandments sum up how the wife or the bride of Yahuwah is to live and is the covenant. The Ark of the Covenant was the portable container holding the commandments, and now his bride has them written on our hearts, the renewed covenant. If we love him, we will obey him. The Greek klerikos, Klerikos, went into the Latin as clericus, Clericus. It means literate. I'm sorry, y'all. I know y'all probably hear my husband in the back. He's so loud. He talking business. He's talking about a project. I can hear him, but he's extremely loud. I know y'all probably, is he hollering at somebody? No, he just talks loud. Okay, the Greek clerikos went into the Latin as clericus. It means literate, the ability to read and write. Some think Peter couldn't read and write, so he enlisted the help of Sila at 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 12 to record his words. The words cleric, clerk, and clergy all refer to a man of letters. Literate men could read literature, and those who could read were given status and therefore became known as clergy. The Church of Rome divided their clergy from the laity or the common people by the distinction of being literate or not. They burnt books and libraries in part to control literacy and therefore power. Another reason to destroy records was so their revision of history could remain uncontested. People who threatened their control were exterminated by the Inquisition, implemented by the Jesuits and the Dominicans. And this is where we will pause today, y'all. And so we'll pick it back up with going into this mark of the beast and his sign and some more his symbols. And it starts with the cross. Okay, so let me see. Kathy, shalom, sis. I just saw you come. You've been here for a while. I just seen it. Okay, y'all. So it is Wednesday, August the 18th, 2021, day 236 of year 3 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 905. Today we read Ezekiel chapter 35, 36, and 37, and we read Fossilized Custom starting at page 333 all the way to 338. Yes, baby.
Dad said I can get one receipt.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's do the blessing. Oh, look. I know. I said yesterday. If y'all was here yesterday, I was going to share some stuff of what we was talking about yesterday. But as I was looking at some of it okay, so this is for like the married couples, right? Those in committed relationships with a spouse. I know how to kind of pick through some stuff. I remove leaven from the loaf, and testing some things. So it's a lot of knowledge that I've gained over the years that I'm not necessarily sure. Not saying that you don't, you probably do, but because I don't know individually that everybody has that knowledge. I don't want to confuse anybody because I was trying to find something where it just kind of gives some basic stuff where it just kind of starts you. But there's some people, at least from some of the comments, I don't know if these people are always watching sometime, but I don't want to confuse people. And I'm not even sure if some of them are married. So if you want some of that information, I'm gonna need you to inbox me directly, right? Because I don't want to put out something out there that's intended to help people and it ends up hurting you, right? It's almost like giving the keys to your car to your 7-year-old child, right? This will be a blessing at a later age when you're trained and you're fully ready to go and you know what to watch out for. You become a defensive driver, you know, because if other people are not paying attention, you're paying attention and you know how to drive and avoid danger. I'm not sure that some people know how to do that quite so well because those same principles apply in the spiritual realm, right? And some people, I just don't want you to go off somewhere and you start searching. Like some people, like if you say, like some of the terms we used yesterday, some people will watch the video yesterday and they'll just start searching some of those terms that we mentioned, and they're going to come across all kinds of information that's wrong and raunchy, right? So even some of the titles of the couple of the books I have, I know what I'm looking for, so I know what information is good and what information is questionable. So when I get stuff, I'm not using all the information that's there. I'm only looking for things that I can verify, and then I test stuff, right? So that's why if you've been going back to yesterday's video, looking for the links and the references, that's why I haven't posted it there yet, right? So I'm still trying to decide because I want to make sure what I put out, I'm going to be held accountable for it, right? And I'm just I don't want to hurt anybody, right? Like, unless we have a personal conversation, I kind of know your life a little bit, and I know you and your spouse, and we all like, okay, here's, I'll share this with you, right? I think y'all can handle this together, y'all, you know. But I'm just not for just dropping stuff out there that I know some people may not be ready for yet, right? So, not saying that you won't be, you will be, but I clearly know just from some of the conversations and some of the comments, not everybody that watches this is. So if you want it, send me an email, and I might ask you a couple questions first before I just want to make sure, you know, because I want to be a good teacher and somebody that gives resources that's going to help you and not hurt you. Yes, baby.
Josh called you.
Yes, Joshua.
Did you wash the car?
Yes, I did. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this blessing. All right, so if you've been checking, that's why. All right, the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah will kneel before us presenting gifts and will guard us with a hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Oh yeah, Trina, I was telling James last night. I was like, look, we need to hang out with Trina and Robert. They just moved back here to this area. So I told him, he said he'll be here on the 2nd. Okay, I was thinking it was gonna be like the 2nd week of September. So I let him know it'll be the 2nd. So once y'all get settled in and everything, we'll go hang out. We was talking about this last night while we were sitting out last night on the back porch and stuff. We was kind of talking about some of this stuff and, who we would clearly we would only talk about it with married couples, like some of these things, right? Not that other people that are not married or not about to get married, but like if you're not even in a relationship where you're even about to be engaged, like I don't, especially if you have trouble with keeping yourself under control. You showing it. I don't want to give you information that could possibly tempt you. Well, let's go and test this out, because some people think, they need to test the waters before they actually get married and stuff. And I'm not in the habit of giving people information, like I said, that's gonna hurt them. Because what if something happened and y'all don't get married, right? And you didn't, this. I'm just like, yeah,
Mom.
So.
Mom.
Married couples that
Mom.
we know. Yes, baby.
I didn't show Nani.
Yeah, I'm 90 C. She see. Y'all look. You see that? Say cheese. She missing a whole tooth, a clean pluck yesterday. That teeth one, I think it was a little loose, but it surely wasn't ready to come out yesterday. Playing with hair bows, twisting them, and putting it in her mouth and snatching them out. One of the fibers from the little hair bow, got caught under her tooth where it was loose a little bit. And when she did it, when it got stuck, she freaked out and popped her whole tooth out. And here she come, hollering and screaming up the stairs. While I'm talking to my mama on the phone, I didn't know what had happened because she was playing with them and she made little hair bows into handcuffs. And here she come up the stairs with her hand still inside the hair bows like the handcuffs, with her tooth in her hand, screaming, blood running down her mouth. I didn't know what happened. I didn't see the tooth in her hand because it was so small. I just thought she kind of had her hands balled up and she was screaming blood. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, what happened? Did you fall? Did you hit your mouth? My tooth. And I look, I'm like, what happened to your tooth? It wasn't, because I knew it wasn't time for it to come out. I'm freaking out. I didn't freak out, but when I found out what she did, I was more so pissed. I'm like, what did I tell you about putting stuff in your mouth? Because that's how Jeremiah, my 18-year-old, lost his 2 front teeth. But it was something he did. This was one of these moments they were still in public school. And Jeremiah was, where you at, girl? I think Jeremiah was in the 3rd grade. I think he was 3rd grade. I think he was in the 3rd grade. Had to been like second or 3rd grade. We stand in this. We just had Jeremiah and Elijah, so it was about time for the bus to come home, and I went outside to my front porch, and then I'm waiting because the bus comes down at the end of the street, and the bus didn't come. So after about 15 minutes of the bus being late, I walked down. I'm like, okay, it's late sometime, so maybe maybe it held up at the school or something, a student. So I went down there and I'm waiting.
Mom.
And the bus didn't come. Wait a minute, Pooh.
Mom.
Yes, Bella. Yes. She said, bless your heart. That's Dream Sky Lover. She pointed to your comment. So finally I called the school after 15 minutes of the bus being late. I went ahead and called the school and found out that their bus was in fact delayed because there was an incident with one of the students on the bus. I'm like, well, okay. Lo and behold, they didn't tell, not lo and behold, but neither did they tell me because they can't really give that information over the phone. And I didn't really feel like anything was wrong because, I would have been like, okay, well, what student? Even though they wouldn't have gave it to me, they just said there was an incident with one of the students on the bus and that route should be at that bus stop and shortly. Yes.
You saw George, my another tooth not coming out.
Yeah, your another tooth not coming out yet. So look, they say that'll be there shortly. So I was like, okay. So I walked back to the house. But when I walked back to the house, I actually, what's crazy, I heard Jeremiah's voice. And I'm like, let me go back because I walked in the house. I wasn't even in there a minute, but I heard Jeremiah's voice. Like he said, Mom. Like I heard his voice. Like that. I have these things happen. Like if my children are calling for me, they will be out of my sight, but I will hear them with my physical ears. So I stepped back out. And so when I stepped back out the house on the porch, the bus, it probably pulled up right when I pulled into the house because there was the bus. And here comes Jeremiah walking with one of the neighborhood kids walking down the street. And it was like a long street. But I heard there was no way in the world that I could have heard the conversation that was happening between Jeremiah and this other little kid because they was like literally, okay, say you live in a neighborhood and you got one end of in your neighborhood and you got one street where we got the houses right here and you can go around the corner of the next street. It was like the length of a street in the neighborhood, right? So we was literally, our house was at one end, like literally at the end of the street, and the bus stop was at the other end of the street. I heard the conversation. They weren't yelling. They was just conversating between one another and their children, right? So when I heard this, I'm like, how did I hear that, right? So I heard them say, the little boy asked Jeremiah, it still blows my mind to this day, y'all. When I think about this, I heard the little boy say to Jeremiah, he said, you going to tell your mom what happened? And Jeremiah was like, I don't know, but she might find out anyway. And I'm like, and so when they got to the house, now I'm concerned because remember I called, the bus was late. The school dispatch told me that there was an incident with one of the kids on the bus. So I'm interested in knowing what happened on the bus. Still not quite realizing that it might be about my child, right? Because nobody called me. I didn't actually I didn't get the notice till like 2 days later from the school, but somebody should have called me on the phone while I'm still waiting for my child with what had happened, because he probably could have, they don't know, like he could have possibly had been needed to be rushed to the hospital, but they just, okay, let me tell you what happened. I'm gonna tell you what they did. So when he got close enough to me, I said, what happened? And he just looked, and the little kid just looked at him and he said, smile. I'm like, smile, what happened? Why was the bus late? And he just kind of started getting a little teary-eyed and stuff. I was like, Jeremiah, what happened? I said, did you get hurt? And he said, a little. I was like, what do you mean a little? You know, and he opened his mouth and I darn near lost it. He went to school with all of his teeth in his mouth. He came home missing his 2 front teeth. I'm like, and I was cussing. I wasn't cussing at him, but I'm like, what the F happened to your teeth? And he had them in his hand. I was like, what happened? Like, I'm like out there flipping out. Like, what happened? And so I had to calm down a little bit because I didn't want him to think I was mad at him.
Mom.
Yes. I see. But what happened was, here's what happened.
Mom.
They were on the bus.
The ball will be over.
It's gonna be over in a second. Let me finish my shenanigans story, sis. I'm gonna let you end it. Hold on. Look, they already listened now. Look, okay, so I'm gonna end this real quick. So he had his teeth in his hand, and he said he was sitting on the bus, and you know, kids, they were sharing the seat, and he was sitting beside this little girl, and they was kind of playing. So with her book, he was pulling on her book bag string. You know how you adjust the straps. and you adjust, and you got the little part that's hanging down after you take it through, and you got this little piece hanging down where you can kind of adjust it. But anyway, he was playing with the straps on her book bag, and she told him to stop, and he wouldn't stop. Well, which is classic behavior for Jeremiah. Jeremiah was extremely high energy. Remember, I told y'all about him. I used to think my son was demon possessed. Like, I had to sleep with both eyes open with him, because he wasn't that bad. It's just kind of exaggerating a little bit. But he was super hyper. He was super hyper, to where they tried to get us to put him on medicine. But I knew something about the medicine, especially the Ritalin, and I wasn't sure that he would ever join the military in his day. But I knew that if you got on Ritalin, it would automatically disqualify you from the military. Not that that's the reason why I did it, because I would think later in life if he decided he would be disqualified. But I didn't think my child needed medicine. And I understand that y'all have school full of students, and y'all trying to get them calm, keep them calm, so you can teach a little message. But I understand he's a boy, he's full of energy. And it's something that I learned from my husband's father. My father-in-law, he said they're boys. They full of energy. He said, keep them outside. He said, let them burn their engine and they'll be fine. Don't you ever get that boy no medicine, right? And we took that to heart. Like, and I think about that with all children. They're full of energy. They need to play. And most boys, most boys' learning style, they're really active. You have some boys that'll sit and they like lectures and they like listen and stuff. But most boys, we got this energy, we got all this testosterone, we need to wrestle and fight. So their learning curriculum needs to be catered to all that energy, right? So that's what I learned. So which is why we had to pull him out, because we're not giving our children medicine. We're not giving him medicine. She was courting. Look, probably was treated, but let me tell you what this little girl did. Well, she was simply just saying, Jeremiah, stop. And she yanked her book bag. But when she yanked her book bag, by this time, instead of him just holding on to the string, he took the strings and he put her book bag strings in his mouth and held them between his teeth like, and she snatched the book bag, right? You know the little adjustable strings, you know how they have, it's kind of folded over and sewed down, so it has that little lip on the very end. He put that in his mouth, and when she snatched the book bag out of those things, it snatched both of his front teeth out of his mouth. Clean, like she lost her 2 clean pluckings at the same time. There was a little bit of blood, they said, went out, because I went to the bus stop that next morning. The bus driver was already going to have pulled off. Like, I was nice, but I was like, why didn't you? I mean, clearly, I had got off the phone and she wasn't going to sit there wait. You know, I understand that, but I had already walked back to the house and she let the kids off, you know, because now he was old enough to where he didn't need a parent standing at the bus stop. She could let him off, you know, and pull away, right? But she re-explained what Jeremiah had told me. You know, they keep first aid kits and stuff on the bus, and she had bottles of water, and she said she cleaned them up. She had a bottle of water, had him rinse his mouth and spit and wiped off the blood and face, but clearly he had blood on the shirt, you know, so yeah, so that's how he lost his 2 front teeth before they were loose or before they were ever supposed to come out, right? But blessed be y'all, there was no damage that was done. They grew back a couple years later, right? I mean, I don't know. I think they should have grew back in faster, but I figured it probably took so long for them to come back because of how they came out. Like before, it's weird, but I'm glad he never had any issue with any kind of mouth trauma or anything like that. And, you know, but that's also, look, since we're talking about teeth, my oldest son, Elijah, it's weird because we just pray over their mouth and ask y'all to make sure everything kind of just stays intact and there's no damage or anything. But Elijah actually, I think his tooth had cracked in half, but he had already lost that tooth, right? And I had never really heard about this. He had already lost that tooth, and it was one of his adult teeth that had grew back in, and it was the adult tooth that had got cracked. So we went to the dentist. They actually removed it, and they didn't fill it up with anything or whatever. They said it'll be fine. He's still young. It'll just kind of, I guess, it'll harden up. They said, but he won't get another tooth there. You guys can come back in if you want to have like a space or something put there. You know, we was just kind of ready to go. It was like, no, you know, we'll leave it as is. We'll address it later if need be. But guess what happened, y'all? He had another adult tooth that grew in. Blew my mind. I didn't know you could lose an adult tooth and grow another adult tooth. Like, he had lost his baby tooth and an adult tooth grew in, and that adult tooth had cracked in half. They removed it and another adult tooth grew in its place. Blew my friggin' mind. Like, I don't know if that's happened to anybody. Maybe it did. I don't know. But the doctor, the dentist told us that another tooth would never, that's not how it happens. Surely it happened for our son, right? So, but yeah, that's my nephew. Mama tried to put him on medicine when he was 2. She said he was too hype. I told her if she would, I'm trying to expand this message. I told her that she put my baby on meds, me and her would have a problem. Girl, yeah, them kids don't need medicine. What parents need is more patience. And they need to set aside some time to get them babies out there, get them into the sun. Like my kids, we at the pool. The pool wears them out. I have a house full of boys. And sometimes you hear them, but sometimes they just wait for me to cut this camera off. And it's a wild kingdom in here. And they little sister girl join in with them, right? And they got all this energy. It's like, y'all got to go outside or something, right? Or if I got work to do, wait till I'm done, I'll try and temper that energy a little bit. Then we got to get outside the house, because I always remember my father-in-law. He said, keep them boys outside and you won't have a problem. So if y'all have kids that's extremely hyper, put them outside. Let them enjoy. Some of them, especially if they into video games and stuff, or I don't want to go outside, you want to have to break some of them habits, put them out there in the sun. Let the nature. Take them to the park. Take them somewhere. Something outside. Somewhere where they can burn the energy. Take them. Let them go swim. Play in the water. I don't care. But I'm telling you, it works. It's classic advice that works. And we always use it, right? So, all right. I'm just running my mouth now, y'all. We got to go, right? So, we did the blessing. That's it. Bella! I know she. Yeah, here you come. Come on. Cut this off. All right, y'all. That's it. I love y'all. Thanks for hanging out. See you tomorrow. Bright and early. 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace. All right, sis. And that right there. You in Facebook first. Bye, y'all.
Bye.